so much for being here today and welcome to our panel discussion on the topic Mind Your Wellness, Cultivating Wellbeing Across Generations in India. We have today with our experts here from the listening room who will share their strategies for nurturing this mental well-being across different age groups in our country. So who do we have on our panel today? Let me start by introducing Dr. Bharti Chavate, who is the founder of Spring Counselling and the Listening Room. She has a PhD in psychology, a degree in education management, along with a diploma in higher education from the Bombay University. Those who've had the opportunity to meet her, speak to her, know the wealth of knowledge, experience and warmth that she brings to the table. We also have with us Tehzeeb Doctor, who is an MA in clinical psychology and is a mindfulness coach. She works to provide a space for children, young adults through talk therapy, play therapy and other creative methods. She also specializes in dealing with those suffering from stress, anxiety, depression, grief, as well as children who are estranged with their parents. And our third panelist today is Reena Mehta, a master's in counseling psychology. She is certified in REBT, transactional analysis, integrated counseling, and other therapies from the Institute of Human Technology. Thank you so much to our panelists for being here today. And now, I'm Michelle Rosario-Johnson, a digital media exec, marketing professional for the last 13 years, and I have been associated with the Listening Room for the last 2.5 years as a client, a student, as well as a consultant. So without further ado, let's dive into the topic of our discussion, mental well-being. The first question that I have for the panel today is, how can we create a supportive environment, an environment for children both at home as well as in schools, where we nurture their emotional well-being? Dr. Bharti, if you would like to share a few thoughts.
Thank you, Michelle, for asking this very, very important question. And I must say that the most important place where good mental health can be taught is, of course, family, at home, schools and organizations where most of us work and live together. So these are the places where, the mental health can be really addressed. And as a preventive approach, these are the places where we can really, teach and grow together, learning how to address emotions, how to express emotions, what do you do about pent-up emotions. And once that is understood at this level, can we actually create a healthy human society?
No, absolutely. I think I agree, Dr. Bharti. And speaking of expressing, I think, Tehzeeb, you do a lot of play therapy and you work with kids a lot. So how important it is for you to let the children actually express what they're feeling?
It's really important because very often as parents, also as teachers, there is an agenda, life is busy, and we don't have the time to actually listen and wait and see where the child is coming from. In schools, children come into class, they've all left something. We don't know when they walked into a school or into a classroom what the last interaction in the car, in the bus, or at home has actually been. So when you're actually approaching the child at that level, that stage, you have to understand that you come in with a bit of openness. And while you do have an agenda and you do need to teach a class of 15 to 50 or more at a time, you need to understand that perhaps the children who are coming there. So giving that kind of emotional learning first to the educator so that they can understand and have that emotional understanding while they're teaching the children is very important. It's very similar with parents as well, because as parents they need to do certain things, they need to live their life and have space and time for their children. So even at that space or that time for them to understand and sort of take that extra moment to understand where the child is coming from at that particular time without a prejudgment and without an agenda. It's not just a tick mark on their list for the day. I think when they do that.
May I just add something? I also feel it's probably the most important skill and ability that a human being will learn, because that's how they will learn to handle life later on, whether it's work, whether it's relationships or it's senior years. This is probably the most important thing that will hold them throughout.
Right.
It becomes gateway. And what I want to add is the child's important language is play. And if this language, if we are not understanding as parents or as teachers, then their whole interest or motivation to look at life changes.
Right.
So that language of play has to be understood at every level when we are with children. That
Yeah, I think that's such a valid point, Dr. Bharati, because it also then allows the adults to bring in their own inner child out, and I think that then makes a deeper connection with the child. So thank you so much, I think, for those insights. But some valid points that you all mentioned is if there's so much pressure growing up, you definitely take that pressure to school as well. So young adults today are constantly pressurized, whether it's academics, whether it's societal pressures. There's so much around them that's happening. What are some things that you think are their unique needs, or how can we help the young adults, kids going to school, kids who are in their pre-teens, for example? How do we help them? So, Reena, if you could just share a few thoughts.
I think the important thing is the environment where they are, which is their schools and homes, to just create a very secure, non-judgmental environment there, because young adults are also grappling with their own identity, with their own pressures, and a lot of parents make it a personal prestige thing, a family prestige thing. Their success, their achievements become a matter of pride for the family and things they can talk about. It puts so much pressure and makes them, puts them into that survival competitive mode, which they learn is the only way to succeed in life, and they use that forever, burning out really fast, putting that same pressure on themselves later.
Right.
It's a pace. I mean, the living really fast. What's the next thing? What's the big next thing? Very often with the young adults, the children have come in saying that every conversation eventually just revolves around the grades and what next. And they feel that that's the only communication they actually have with their parents and in school. So, very often and unmeaningly, the narrative becomes it's don't party now, or don't go out with friends now. You need to just concentrate on your studies over a day, a week, a month, and it's very hard for any human being to sort of do that. Take out no time for leisure or to be focused in one direction, and parents and teachers are busy parenting and teaching at that point. So again, connecting with the inner child, like you spoke about,
Right.
can help.
what I would like to add is mental health means the mind becomes solid or stronger as we incorporate with it how to live with more interest, motivation, happiness. And if it is only competitive and survival oriented built, then the mind weakens and it doesn't have the strength to go through day-to-day experiences or challenges of life. So instead of looking at competition and grades, one is to see how we can build mind which is building its own strength to look at life in general.
Right.
So I suppose that's very important for youth.
No, absolutely. I
Can I
think
just add,
Yeah,
actually,
sure.
it's also, it doesn't give them a chance to make choices and decisions based on awareness of themselves.
Yeah.
Because there is so much pressure and so much cultural and societal approval and need for things that will make the family or themselves look good or put them ahead in competition. Where they're never looking at what is it that works for me, what is it that I connect with, where's my joy.
Yeah, so the whole approach, if it is to look at him or her of who he is and how he is and center around that, and therefore set up a particular goal for that child, and somebody is more softer or somebody is more sensitive or somebody is more physically strong, then how do we build that life? So unless parents, teachers and all of us take interest in that, mental health will always be a challenge.
It's also a very strong time of like bullying, peer pressure, how they want to behave, how their
Conforming.
class, conforming to how their, the students around them behave. that may not be the way they live their lives within their homes.
Right.
So there's a lot of introduction to lots of other things with social media and also with substances and all of that at this age, and experimentation. So it's a time that is very sensitive in their lives, and like Bharti said, their mind is forming, and so it's a time that everybody should appreciate is a challenging stage for them as well.
Right. No, absolutely. I think what comes through, based on what I'm hearing from you, is there is no one size fits all. It's each individual, each person, and also recognizing that they may be children, they may be young, but they're still their own person. So how do I appeal to that person and then sort of build a life for them that they would also enjoy, rather than later on doing what the parents said and then you have resentment, you're not happy with what life brings you, right? So that definitely comes through. And speaking of which, I think sometimes kids may take the same pressure or this kind of need to succeed or to appease their parents or their family into the workplace. I think it's no secret that the workplace today is very, very challenging. And what do you think should be done by corporates or by leaders to help the workforce to sort of deal with the mental health challenges that they're going through and just make work a lot more easy, fun, appealing? So Tezi, maybe share a few words.
I think everybody, like you said, whether children or adults, respect needs to be given to everybody, and people are now appreciating and valuing that in the workspace. They're also valuing the idea that they need some time for themselves and they need to be able to be happy while they're working. Building on teams, seeing how they work. The onus of that actually lies with the people in the HR or the leadership in a company. It doesn't really lie within just the people working in an organization. And they are the ones who would be able to bring out the best in whoever is working for them. So I think taking a little time, or maybe setting up a coffee with somebody with no real agenda, just to understand where they're coming from, if they have any bright ideas, if they have any issues, or just chatting, person to person, it can make a big difference.
And to add to that, I think pretty much what we were talking about with school, that the focus on the outcome and the goal and the grades and the goals, the targets, is what puts the pressure. And if we can give a shout out to the effort, to the smaller things they've done, to the teamwork, that they work well with a team and help colleagues work on something, if those things can be appreciated, mentioned, acknowledged, I think that would also go a long way.
Yeah, the small things which we miss out, and the joy of the small thing, like we have become, like how, to be a god of small things is very, very important, and organizations sometimes miss out on that, in the process of targets. So we have been working with certain corporates, and we do visioning exercise, road mapping, goal setting, and then certain organizations which become person-centric, people-centric, and then not look at the person as a person, then you interact with them differently and you create activities around people differently, and that is very important for corporates.
A lot of corporates have started wellness days. They've started wellness programs, getting them into retreats and having programs where they can work as a community. And those really, a lot of companies are also subsidizing therapy.
Right, yeah.
A lot of companies.
No, absolutely. I think the company that I work for, and we have the same practice that you mentioned, Reena, we were speaking of it earlier. We call it the celebrating little joys, right? So you may not end up winning that award, but even if you get nominated, even if it is just a showcase of the work, you're really proud of something new, different, even if it's a social media post, right? It may be as small as a post or as big as an entire campaign that got nominated. It is the idea of celebrating the little joys. And absolutely, I think giving people the mental wellness breaks are essential, especially when you know your industry you know there are peaks in every industry.
Yeah.
So if you are from digital, your festivities are a peak. So immediately after the festivities, proactively give them a break so that they can recoup, and then productivity, like Dr. Bharti said, will then soar if you address those. So thank you for sharing this. Another question, since we are discussing different generations, and we've addressed children, we've addressed the young adults, we've addressed the workforce. I think an important controversial topic of therapy is to the elderly, right? So senior citizens may not always be open to the idea of therapy. There's definitely a little pushback when we see our own families and we try to talk to them. Even if we tell them we are doing therapy ourselves or going for therapy, they may not be that open to it. So what do you think? What should be done to sort of encourage them? Is there something we can do for them? What's the need for therapy in the elderly? And I just open this to the floor.
I think the need is very high because that's the time they lose confidence in themselves. Some people are in despair, some people are not. They're also very lonely very often. They're also not feeling in touch with the new technology and things that they need. So they're a little lost. How do I order this? How do I order that? Basic things like that. That, for the younger ones is the norm. So the need is very high. But they are not seeking the help, which is why we have to, and they're not open to it, because I think the time when they were growing up, it was not the thing. It was the thing that weak people did, people with big problems, or it's a big illness. So they're not willing to accept that this is what I have or this is my need.
Right.
And in that case, we have to find ways to reach them. And like we were talking earlier, also a way that comes to mind is they're open to physiotherapy. They're open to someone coming and teaching them something on the computer. So possibly to train these people in counseling to understand what the geriatric or the senior population may need.
Right.
And I think Dr. Bharti had some points.
Yeah. So whenever we have somebody who is of a senior age, I mean, I myself I'm not a very senior age, but whenever somebody comes and there is a very great resistance, so what we do is ask the daughter or the son to sit with, and while they are dialoguing, slowly they get used to. So it's getting them slowly ready, and once they get ready, they are willing to talk, because there is a sunken cost. Like after a period of time, there is no value of their opinion in the family situations. Their decisions are taken by somebody else, and all these are very, very important areas which are causing them anxiety or depressive tendencies. And so sometimes a youth can help them by coming as a couple, and we encourage that many a times. Or as a family, like there are some people, there is one elderly lady coming with two daughters, and Reena is very much closely connected. Or somebody we continuously find it challenging, but there are ways.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, with art therapy, there's music therapy, there are lots of other ways to reach out to the older people as well, and then imbibe, even like Reena said, going to the physiotherapist or any doctor actually, because at this stage another thing that they're facing is dealing with a lot of different physical ailments or new things coming up, the worry of what's next, not really, finding new things in their life that they can start looking forward to, a new hobby or an old hobby that was forgotten because life took over, whether it was children or work that came in the way. There are lots of things that, as you grow through life, you don't have the time to sit down with. So maybe once families, like Bharti was saying, if you come together and you sort of find this kind of space that would encourage them on a daily basis or a weekly basis to sort of do something that they like, whether it was writing, whether it was engaging with children or anybody really.
Right.
And just to appreciate the fact that they are going through a new stage in their life.
Yeah,
Honestly, it's the golden age for them, we call it, but really it's a very lonely time.
Yeah.
And it would be really wonderful if they can relive the child in them at that point and play.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think I was reading this book Ikigai, and it spoke about how Japan has a longer lifespan, and the only reason they have a longer lifespan is that they are constantly active, they are constantly exercising, enjoying everything in life. They eat, drink, everything, but also there's a sense of community, right? To do the things that they love with. So I think that's a very valid point, that they need to find what they love and then go out there, be social, spend time doing things they love, and that could definitely help with their mental health. So we would love to hear some questions from our audiences who are live. But before we began our live, we had a few questions coming in on our website as well. Quickly taking a few, and I'll just throw them out to you guys. The first question came in from Puneet Madan. He's asking us how to get rid of introvert nature. Dr. Bharati, if you want to take it.
Okay, let me say, Puneet, introversion is something like a trait you're born with, and there's nothing wrong about it. It is not that extroversion is better than introversion. These are two different traits. And it's important that to find out what are the advantages of being introversion. There are a lot of CEOs, many people who are introversive, but they achieve great heights in their career if you are thinking about that. And the major part is, in fact, because if you're introversive, you can actually focus very well on your task. So it's a very good active place where you are. But it can be supplemented with how do I engage with the environment, how do I build that self-confidence, and one can build that through counseling, through coaching. It is possible.
So,
making choices, understanding yourself.
yeah.
Just being aware and accepting this is who I am, and so I'm going to make choices accordingly. There's nothing right or wrong with this trait.
Yeah, so Puneet, nothing to get rid of there. I think a very heartening message from Dr. Bharati and Reena that maybe CEO is in the books. So the next question we have is from Rajni Agarwal. She asks us, when do you know you need help? Which professional should you approach? Online versus in-person therapy, what would we suggest? So Reena, do you want to take this?
Yeah. So when do you know you need help is, I would say when you start regularly feeling overwhelmed with emotions, when you're not able to be functional, when you're not able to attend school, class, work as needed, when relationships are constantly, there's some kind of patterns emerging which is not very effective, and a lot of other symptoms. But the important thing is to know that the environment is not really what you're looking to change. If that's what you're looking to change, then that's a different matter. But when you come in for therapy, it's when you realize your input and your response to these events is what is causing the pain, the anxiety, the depression. And when you're ready to work on that, honestly, is when you come in for therapy. And you asked about
Yes, online versus in-person therapy, what are your suggestions?
So, online therapy works really well, honestly, because one, it gives you autonomy, it's convenient, you can do it from home. A lot of people outside the country, in different parts of the country, what they find is that they can get culturally contextual therapy with a therapist who understands, because it's possible online. The important thing is that that space should feel safe, it should feel non-judgmental, it should feel like you own that space between you and your therapist, you feel that connection. We at TLR are doing online therapy all the time. It works really well. It's actually given opportunity to a lot of people who might not otherwise have been able to get therapy.
Right.
And of course, if you prefer, in-person sessions are always open and possible. But online therapy also works really well.
Hope that answered your question, Rajni. The next question is from Ritu Pandit. She asks us how to deal with emotional exhaustion. So, Tezi, well,
Okay, Ritu. So with emotional exhaustion, and since you use the word exhaustion, perhaps first you should look into whether your vitamin levels are low. There could be, if it's a lot of exhaustion that you're feeling on a daily basis, it's worth checking out just to see that your levels are okay and it's not a physical reason that you're feeling like that. But otherwise, if you're feeling overwhelmed with your emotions, maybe just take a minute and understand where you're coming from, what thoughts are really clouding your mind and coming to you, and where the stress lies. Because there's so many things we go through on a daily basis, and even though we land up making lists, and even though we think we have a plan, it just all gets very overwhelming. And you're not alone. There's so many of us always feeling overwhelmed by our emotions. So just have a check-in and really then break it down and see what is stressing you. And then while dealing with each thing, you might find some answers and you might be able to bring yourself back.
So thank you so much. I hope that helped you, Rita. Thank you, guys. I think we don't have any questions on the live. Is it? Do we have any questions? Okay, so we do have a question, and this one's in Hindi, so I'll try to do my best. Society को लगता है कि थेरेपी के लिए कुछ गलत है, mentally stable नहीं है. So what are your thoughts on that particular question? Is it just because you are mentally unstable, that's why you go for therapy? What would you say to them?
Honestly, I think therapy. I think everyone should get therapy.
Yeah.
Every single person, honestly. It just therapy is what it's just looking at your thoughts that are not helping you, your limiting beliefs that are causing anxiety and other issues, not helping you be effective in your day-to-day life.
Right.
It could be in a relationship, it could be in your studies and anything. So honestly, it's not a mental weakness, it's just a different way of looking at it. And the therapist is only putting a mirror in front of you and showing you this is what is going on with you, and it's not helping.
Yeah, so I would like to say, because the question has come in Hindi में आप उत्तर देना चाहिए. तो ये है कि सबको ज़रूरत है थेरेपी की. जैसे कि हम लोग खांसी हो गई, सर्दी हो गई, हम लोग डॉक्टर के पास जाते हैं, दवाई करते हैं. वैसे कुछ भी हमारे दिमाग में या मेंटल स्पेस पे कुछ होता है तो आपको किसी से बातचीत करनी चाहिए, और बातचीत तो कोई बुरी बात नहीं है. एंड इट इज़ गुड इफ़ यू हैव सम इश्यूज. कभी कभी कुछ प्रॉब्लम होता है, तभी ही हम लोग कुछ सॉल्यूशन देखने की इच्छा रखते हैं. तो इट इज़ वेरी गुड इफ़ वी हैव प्रॉब्लम्स इन लाइफ.
I just want to add that very often a lot of people who we meet land up saying, in retrospect, I went through something and I realized at that point I wasn't going through a very good stage, or I went through some depression, whether it was after a baby and was postpartum, whether it was going through grief, whatever it was. And if you could come forward and take therapy, not because you are not okay, but because it would be nice to be able to talk to somebody else who's not your family, not your friend at that point. You don't need to go through those few years and then retrospectively think that you could have done better. You don't need to be at a stage where you're totally helpless and then come for the tools of help. It could be just a common cold, it's fine.
No, makes sense, because I think as a personal experience, 2.5 years ago, I think I came for a session because I had a panic attack, I had an anxiety attack, and I didn't know what I was feeling because it was the first time in my life that I'd gone through that. And I sought help, I came here, and 2.5 years now, I come every weekend. It's one thing I never miss because of that. There is no ailment, there is nothing that I feel is wrong, but it just helps me live my life better. It helps me understand myself a lot more. It also helps me understand people around me a lot more, so that I can have patience, just sort of live a better life than I used to live. So I completely agree with you. We have another question from the audiences. Work-life balance नहीं हो रहा है, feeling frustrated every time. What do I do?
So here's I want to say that ये work-life balance meaning ऐसा perfect balance कभी ही होता नहीं. कभी ऐसा होता है कि 1 दिन और 4 दिन you have to work hard and you have to spend more hours and then उसको फिर balance करने को सीखना चाहिए. Like how even Michelle said that there are times when there is a hectic schedule and you have to fill it up, and then you take a mental break, like you take a easy time. So that is work-life balance. The perfect like 8-8 घंटे आप ये काम करो, फिर 2 घंटे ये करो, ऐसे perfect कोई भी दिन होता नहीं है.
Also, I think there are choices that you are making, honestly, and at every stage you have to assess कि भाई this work-life balance is not working for me. Then it's a choice you're making. But once you've chosen one job, once you've chosen a life line, then somewhere you also look at what it's coming with and make decisions, what works for you, what doesn't work for you.
And to be mindful, how much am I working, or what is my stretch now? I've stretched myself too much. Now let me take that break. That mindfulness is going to help.
And with mindfulness itself, you say that when you are working, work. But when you're not working physically, whether it's sleeping or whether you're eating your meal, do that. So take those breaks. Maybe that can.
Right. We have one last question that we're taking from the audiences that are live with us today. When you will know that you are depressed? How do you figure out that you're depressed? How do you do this?
So there are very many easy signs of knowing that when you are constantly getting into negative thought process, when you are very irritable and you are snapping out, or you can't get up in the morning, or your night sleep is very irritated, or you are constantly dreaming, and when you wake up you feel exhausted. So many a times these are the signs of depression, and you have to go to a clinician, meaning either you go to a therapist or a psychiatrist and get assessed, find out whether you are facing something, and there are many tests also which your professional can take, and then you know that there is something going on. So the moment you feel that you're feeling exhausted, of mind constantly chattering, maybe that's the sign of depression.
I think also to add to what you're saying, Dr. Bharti, at TLR itself, we do have psychoanalysis that we do, and I personally have done it myself. And the whole process of actually doing those tests and sitting across a professional and my therapist as well, who could explain to me what's going on with my mental health, I think that was also important, because sometimes I think these are these buzzwords, right? I have anxiety, I have depression. Maybe you're just sad, and it's okay to be sad sometimes. Or also understanding, I think an important point for me was, I'm a person with depression, I may not be a depressed person. So there is a lot of changes in the way you look at mental health, you look at these issues. But I think the step always is take that step to understand yourself. Again, the whole point of mindfulness. Just understand what you're going through. Be a little alert of what you're feeling. I think that will definitely tell you.
Something you said was very important. I'm a person with depression. I'm not a depressed. I'm a person who has a cold.
Yeah.
I'm not an ill person.
Yeah.
I think it's a really important point.
Any other questions, Steve? You're good? All right. So thank you so much. A big thank you to our panelists today. Thank you for taking the time, Dr. Bharti, Tehzeeb, Reena. I think this was fun, very insightful, very enriching. Also, a big thank you to all of you for being present for our Mind Your Wellness panel discussion today. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.